I almost don't even know what to say. It's just a little bit unbelievable, unfathomable. We recorded 200 episodes. I mean, I just don't even understand how we got to this number. I mean, obviously I understand. I had a lot of conversations, but it's crazy. Okay, but here's why it's crazy. It's crazy because, we started this podcast about 4 years ago, and it came out of the fact that I was doing a lot of Instagram lives. And, this was a time, again, we're talking 4 years ago, it was 2022. So it wasn't in the middle of COVID still, but there were still a lot of people that were not really going out so much. And Instagram lives were really big. And I was like, I'm having all these really substantive conversations. Like, why not take those conversations and just put it on a podcast so that it was easier for people to listen to? There wasn't a lot of thought behind it. It was just, we have all of these wonderful conversations with people who have been through the absolute unimaginable. And why not bring it to more people so that lots of others could hear and could gain strength from it? And that's kind of how we started and then slowly, it just took off. I started talking to more people. I started talking to experts in the field, doctors, therapists, big personalities on and off social media, and it kind of just continued to grow. And the feedback was phenomenal. It was like, thank you so much. I didn't realize I was the only one who was going through this. It really helped me because I got a diagnosis and then immediately I was able to scroll into your podcast and find exactly that topic. And you had an episode with someone who had been through exactly what I had been through. So many of you have responded and said, I finally feel like I'm understood. And that's the essence of what we're trying to do with all of our work at I Was Supposed to Have a Baby, the podcast included. I mean, it's so much about holding all of you who are struggling and wanting you to know that you are not the only one in the world who's going through this, even if the situations are a little bit different. But there's so much you can learn from every story, whether it's someone who's lost a baby or whether it's someone who is going through surrogacy or whether it's someone who is trying to figure out what their next step is. That's what the power of 200 episodes is to me. I've been able to have conversations where people talk about things that they don't share in regular everyday conversation. They talk about their grief. They talk about the waiting. They talk about the anger, the humor, which is always the best. They talk about hope. They talk about fear. We get into lots of substantive conversations about God, about faith, about what do you believe or what do you just can't handle anymore. It's about relationships. It's about how do you find a place in community when community is only focused on kids and family, or so it seems. And a lot of the conversations, in fact, I would venture to say probably most of the conversations all talk about what happens when life doesn't turn out the way you expected. What happens when you were supposed to have a baby and then you don't. I just feel really lucky to be able to hold all of these people in these conversations, that I have been able to make people feel safe, make them know that it's okay to sit and cry with me. And we've been so blessed to have people sit and laugh with me. And I've also had people sit and cry with me. And together, we hold this very delicate but important space. And I cry along with many of my guests because, look, all of you know, I have my own story of grief and loss and pain and infertility. And sometimes my emotions bubble up during these conversations. But I think that that's okay. I'm not just a robot or AI having these absolutely heart-wrenching discussions with people. They're sharing, sometimes for the first time, things that they've never shared with anybody else. And I just feel so privileged. There are many conversations I think about a lot. I think about all the time, actually. And yeah, I promise I'll share a bunch of my favorites in the show notes. But the thing that I come back to is the fact that so many of us have stories that we don't share with the public, that we hold in our hearts, and nobody really knows about the pain that we carry. And if this podcast has helped you feel a little bit less alone in your own pain, then that's what it's for. Because I know that every time I get off a conversation with a guest, they tell me I feel so much lighter. I've been wanting to share this for such a long time, and I just didn't have someone I trusted with my story. So to all of you out there, to the 200 plus people that I've had conversations with, thank you. Thank you for opening your hearts and for coming on here and really bearing your souls. Because look, at the end of the day, this is a podcast about fertility. We are an organization that talks about the struggle to have a child. But at the end of the day, this is really just about people wanting to connect to other people and feel seen and heard. And it's also about people who really want to hold the people in their lives who are going through so much pain and they don't know how. They don't know the right way to do it. And by listening to these episodes, they have a little bit of a deeper understanding as to what people that they love are going through. So thank you. Thank you to all of our guests. Thank you to all of our listeners. And trust me, we're not done. There is so much more to come, including today's episode. I really wanted to do something special for our 200th episode, or look, this is technically the 201st episode. So it's in celebration of 200 episodes, but you know what I mean. I'm so lucky because we were able to interview the person who has the #1 podcast in the Jewish space, and that's Jonah Platt. And it's called Being Jewish. And this podcast is certainly not #1 in the Jewish space, but we are at within the top 5% of all podcasts worldwide. So I'll take that. And in 2025, we were the #14 in terms of all fertility podcasts worldwide. And I'll take that too. I wanted someone who was a big personality who could talk about their fertility experience, because we all know celebrities are people too. And Jonah talks about his experience with him and his wife and everything they went through. And it's not a classic infertility story, as you'll hear, but it is just as important of a story because we don't know what people are carrying. We don't know unless they choose to tell us, because so many people hold things inside. And when you look at them, you would think like, oh, they have 3 amazing kids and it must have been so easy. And on some level, it was. But on some level, it really wasn't. Right at the end, he has this absolutely, really powerful line that I think about all the time. Let me know what you think. And right before we get started, I know this is a part that people don't love so much because it's kind of like the salesy, commercially thing, but it has to be said. If you want us to be able to reach new listeners and have more people really understand what people in the fertility community are going through, then I'd love to be able to share this podcast even more than it's been already shared. So please like, rate, and review, because more people need to find us. They need to feel less alone, and we need to teach everyone else why it's so hard to go through this kind of struggle. Now to the episode. Hi, I'm Dr. Aimee Barron, the founder and executive director of the nonprofit I Was Supposed to Have a Baby. On this podcast, I invite different people to join me in conversations about infertility, pregnancy loss, infant loss, surrogacy, adoption, and so much more. We laugh, we cry, and we challenge the Jewish community to think differently about a topic that has been shrouded in secrecy and shame for so long. So join me as we talk away the taboo. Okay, everybody, I am here with a really special guest in celebration of our 200th episode here at Talking Away the Taboo. I wanted to bring someone who didn't necessarily share their fertility story yet publicly in a way that was sort of really out there, but also that it would be someone who hopefully would be recognizable to many of you out there who are listening. And so I'm really honored to be having this conversation with Jonah Platt, who really runs the foremost Jewish podcast in the world. And we're like, way, 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 way down there. So the fact that Jonah is here is a real honor for us. And I really just want to jump right into it, if you'll allow me. So
Please.
We're going to do all the introductions beforehand and tell everybody who you are. But I want to just take people back and tell people a little bit about your background, about who you are. Yes, people know your professional life, but what I'm interested in is who were you when you were growing up? What did your family life look like? And very specifically, a lot of people, and often I have conversations with women more than I do with men, but often people have this idea oh, when I grow up and when I meet the right person, then I'm going to have this number of kids and we're going to have them at exactly this time and it'll be at this point in our careers and so on. And so I'm curious if you had any of that vision when you were growing up or even at any point later on, and then take us into kind of where things are now.
Oh boy. Okay. Well, let's see where to start. So, my life growing up was lovely. I had a very warm, loving, blessed childhood that I'm sure in a lot of ways looked like a lot of people's childhoods. I grew up in a quiet suburban neighborhood, part of LA. And my mom is from Kansas and my dad is from Baltimore, and my sister was born in New York. So I'm the first of my family to be born in Los Angeles.
Okay.
So people are sort of always surprised that my family doesn't have an LA vibe, but it's because they're not LA people. Running around with the next door neighbors and playing in the yard, and I know we get to go swimming on the weekends here in LA, which is pretty great. But yeah, it was very sweet. And always I was involved in the arts. That's like my whole family's bread and butter. My parents, one of the things that brought them together when they met in college was their shared love of the performing arts. They were both performers. My mom, a singer, my dad kind of did everything. So we were all raised on their passion. And so a lot of our time was spent putting on shows together in the backyard and singing and piano lessons and musical
All of
theater.
you, all five of you.
Yes, all five. They call us the Von
Amazing.
Platts. All five are
I love that.
incredible singers. My sisters, who are not in any way public facing, have beautiful voices. And then funny enough, in college, I was in the same a cappella group as my now brother-in-law, who's my sister's husband. So even he's a singer. So, and my other sister's husband at least sang in a high school choir for a minute. So, and my wife, she'll tell you she can't sing, but she actually has a great voice too. So it's kind of a pretty high bar. And then my brother's husband, is a Broadway level performer. So he sings. So everybody's in. My daughter, who's 3, was just in her first musical. She was in Frozen on last
Oh,
Saturday,
wow.
which was just the
Oh,
cutest
wow.
thing of all time. She was amazing. She was young Anna and Olaf. So,
Okay.
already delivering on the
Okay. Okay.
performing
So
art bug.
She wasn't doing Let It Go yet. She had to be
She
the
was
older
not Let
one.
It Go yet. There was another girl she got Do You Want to Build a Snowman
Yeah,
and
yeah.
In Summer. So
I
she
love it.
nailed it. It was so
I love
cute.
it.
Um, to answer your question about, my vision of the future, I'm very much like not that kind of person generally. I'm very much a live in the present more so kind of person. I have a very actually like poor memory for things that have happened to me. It's kind of weird. It's like I can remember everything I ever read in high school, like European history, but I can't remember like what I did last Tuesday. So
Um,
there's no,
Sounds
I don't
familiar.
hold, I don't hold on to the past. I don't worry about the future until I get there. I'm like very much in the present. So I mean, I certainly assumed and hoped one day that I would be married and would have children and would be a father and a husband. But I never, even if you ask me today, like, how many kids are you going to have? Like, I'm still like, I mean, we have 3 now. And if you ask my wife, we're done. And I would say we're probably done. But like, I didn't know that 3 was right until we had 3, and then I was in it and said, "All right, this feels pretty right." And that's sort of how I approach things generally. I met my wife, I think I was 27, um, and like we met at a time when I wasn't even like neither of us were even really looking to meet somebody, so it was not like it was like a hard, like pressure filled kind of hunt. It just sort of happened organically and beautifully as those things often do. And it's just played out the way that it's meant to have played out.
I love that. I mean, I and I so appreciate this, like, this idea of it played out the way it was supposed to play out. And look, I sit in this space where I interview lots of people where things haven't played out the way they hoped it would, and then the struggle the struggle afterwards, and what does that look like? And I think, I love the fact that the two of you met in such an organic, natural way. But then, I mean, and I know a little piece of your story. I know then the question of children didn't necessarily happen the way that you thought. Um, tell us a little bit more about that. Like, even in the
Yeah.
discussions, like when you met Courtney, was there like, I know you say now, well, we're done or we're not done, or she says you're done. Was there a discussion like, oh, it had to be 3, or it was just like, let's see how this goes?
I think we both always knew we wanted it like 3 was the minimum. It was probably gonna be the maximum, but it was definitely the minimum. Like we both wanted at least to get to 3. She's one of 3, I'm one of 5, and it just felt I think for us, less would have felt incomplete and certainly what we were hoping for.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So how soon did you start trying, and how did that first pregnancy go?
It's interesting. All 3 of our pregnancies have been totally different in how they happened. The first one, let's see, we got married in the summer of 2016, and then we got pregnant 2 years later, basically. So we literally, with my son, as I like to say, we hit a hole in one. I was doing a musical at the time in San Francisco, and Courtney, my wife, was coming up and down a little bit from LA to spend time with me in San Francisco, and then coming back down a little bit to do stuff in LA, and coming back up and being with me in San Francisco. And it was on like a day off or a weekend off or something. We went to Napa and we did some wine tasting, and we like came back to the hotel and we're like, let's make a baby. And we did.
Love
And
it.
we almost named him Unfiltered Chardonnay. Um, and it was amazing. I just like, it's sort of like the way we met. It was this very organic, no pressure situation. And like, that's sort of how it worked out. And it was such a blessing and incredible. And then my wife got cocky, and I wanted the kids to be 3 years spaced out. That was how or even less, between 2 and 3 years. And so I kept being like, I think we should start earlier, like give us a little runway to try to hit that thing, that area. I'm All my siblings are at least 3 years apart, three, 3.5, and 5 years apart. And I always felt that was too big. I wanted my kids to be spaced a little closer. I felt like, um, it's nice to be in your own lane as a kid, but also I think you want to share some things more, excuse me, with siblings. And I like my siblings and I were never quite in the same place at the same time because we were so spread out, and I wanted something different for my kids. And Courtney, was sort of very confident from how it had gone with our son. And here's sort of the key point, and the reason why I'm having a sort of fertility conversation is not that my
Yeah.
wife has difficulty with fertility. She's actually very fertile, but she has multiple sclerosis. And in having multiple sclerosis, obviously, there's a lot that comes along with that. And when it comes to pregnancy, the sort of the two key pieces are how does she feel in her body throughout a process, and B, in terms of her medicine, she has to come off or had to come off of everything in order to even try to get pregnant. You can't be on any of the stuff that you're taking for MS, and you can't get back on it until you're done breastfeeding. So that's a lot to ask of her. She
Can
like her
you
me-
can you
Yeah,
sorry, Jonah, can
no,
you
please.
say more just about like the kinds of medicines, like how they help her function and
Yeah,
why it is a big deal for her to go off it? Think
huge. Yeah,
people don't necessarily understand the gravity of that.
yeah. So there's like essentially two two different kinds of, or three different like sectors of medication that she has to take. One is like the MS medication, which is this is medication she takes to prevent the growth and spread of lesions, the plaque on her spine and brain that is the symptom, or the what multiple sclerosis is. It's when you're myelin is the sheath that covers the nerves in the brain, the neurons. Think of it as like the rubber piece around a wire. And when you have MS, your body attacks its own myelin and eats away at that myelin, and then so the cord underneath is getting exposed, and those wires they short circuit a little bit. So that manifests on an MRI as these like white spots, these lesions. So she's on medicine, and the medicine from when she was diagnosed, before we met, she was diagnosed like almost 15 years ago, maybe 15. The medicine has already improved tremendously, and she's on a really great one now where her lesions, they've stopped growing, stopped moving.
Amazing.
They're set, which is great. Um, but so that's obviously critical to be on. And there was one period in her life where she did go off, and she was like, I'm going to try something different, and I'm going to try a different lifestyle and different XYZ. And the lesions all grew. It's like, so the medicine is like really, really pivotal. And then there's the like managing the symptoms of MS medicine, which for her, the two main things, number one, her biggest symptom is fatigue. And what I mean when I say fatigue, it's like beyond anything you can imagine as a regular person. It's like picture yourself at your absolute most exhausted, and it's like that's the baseline setting for her, like waking up in the morning without having slept 12 hours, like just
Wow.
waking up and just feeling exhausted all the time. Like when I travel, I'm on the road and I'm out of town, she's going to bed at like 7 o'clock at night.
Wow.
If I wasn't there, she would go to bed immediately, like every night. And she has to really pick and choose her social activities. Like when everybody, I'll give you one more example, then I'll get back to, like, when everybody travels, like it's certainly my family's crazy travelers, for work, not just for pleasure. But like my dad, my mom, myself, we're all, for whatever reasons, flying all over the country, internationally, all the time. We're excellent travelers, and we're used to hitting the ground running, right? Uh, Courtney, like, absolutely cannot do that. When she travels, it's like I need to get to the place and I need to pass out. And you cannot be like scheduling activities for me when we get there. And I had to learn that because like my instinct is like, we landed in Paris, let's go to the museum and like we'll stay up and we get on the time zone or whatever. She needs to have nothing planned at all. She needs to be chill immediately. She's exhausted. And it's just like a different kind of exhaustion. So she takes medication every day. It's basically a narcolepsy medication to like just be awake every day.
Yeah.
And then she also takes like antidepressants because that's a symptom of MS. And they also kind of work against each other, right? So like one brings you up, one brings you down. So she's on
Right.
that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And she's on a couple of other things too, and different, supplements and this and that. But those are sort of like the main things: is the upper, the downer, and the MS itself. And
Yeah.
so in order to even attempt to get pregnant, she has to come off all of that stuff. So she feels like crap on day one and she's not even pregnant yet.
God.
Um, you know,
God. Yeah.
it's tough. And so with my daughter, again, she got cocky and she was like, oh, this is going to be easy. And, cut to it's been 4 months and we're not pregnant. And she's like, I cannot do this anymore. Like we need to be proactive and dial this in. We've got to do IVF. Like I have to be able to control this now. I
Yeah.
can't just like hope and pray and feel this
Yeah.
way infinitely.
Yeah. I mean, which makes total sense, because
Yeah.
how could anybody, I mean, what you're describing is basically impossible. Like, how could you go through, even a week, and you're talking about already 4 months of the
Yeah.
uncertainty of, am I going to get pregnant? Am I not going to get pregnant? Do I have to feel this way for longer? Like, you want
Yeah.
some sort of like assurance, like, at least I need to do all the things that I need to do to
Right.
try to help this along.
Right. At least now I'm like exerting some sense of control and
Totally.
schedule and there's already, without the MS stuff, anyone trying to get pregnant, like there's a pressure there, and I think, all of that compounding was not helping either. Again, it's like the first time it was so pressure free. The second time it wasn't happening. So you're getting the pressure of why isn't it happening? And, one of the worst exacerbators of MS is stress. So it all compounds.
Yeah.
So we went to do IVF, which was for us a very positive experience. Amazing doctor who took amazing care of Courtney. And like I said, one of the reasons I think we don't talk about this story that much is because her issue is infertility. And we don't want to be like, we're a fertility story when, she went in to do IVF. I think she had like 40 eggs retrieved, right? It was like something insane. She had a crazy
Incredible.
number, incredible. We had, I think, 15 embryos that were, by the time all was said
Incredible.
and done, that were like perfectly graded, ready to rock, like very fertile. And so blessed to be able to, we wanted to have a daughter, be able to select a daughter. And it took right away on the first time. So that whole process was amazing. But, carrying that baby and going through the big, the early part of breastfeeding, all of that, just, tremendously difficult on her body. For both pregnancies, her body, she put on 55 pounds. She's not a big person. That was basically 50% of her body weight. And so just a lot for her to carry off of her medicine. Not somebody who like loved being pregnant and felt it was, great, like felt
Yeah.
terrible every day for the 9 months. And then, as I mentioned, getting to the breastfeeding part is still like wanting to be on her medicine, but can't be because she's feeding the baby and you can't have the chemicals and stuff going for the baby. So, again, thank God my daughter came out perfect and everything was smooth. I mean, both my kids were C-sections, so the deliveries were not perfect, but fine, and babies came out great.
By the way, I have to interject just for a second. As a pediatrician, I, c- I- we as a group, we speak about two things that are true. Number one is that at the end of the day, the only thing that matters is that there's a healthy baby that comes out. Whether the
100%.
baby comes out vaginally or by C-section, it actually doesn't matter. And
Right.
so I'm just going to pick at that like it wasn't a perfect delivery. It was perfect. It was
Yeah,
perfect.
yeah. I mean, his heart rate
I
dropped
know.
and we had to rush her into a C-section. So like that part, not great,
Yes.
but like he came out totally healthy and perfect. And then she, Courtney wanted the experience of delivering naturally. So she tried again the second time, but like both my kids were just real comfortable in there and didn't want to come out. And,
Yeah.
both were
Yeah.
induced, wouldn't come out. Like she never got dilated. We were there for hours both times, just like wasn't meant to be.
Yeah.
Um, we're at
Yeah.
peace with it.
Yeah,
So then,
and
yeah,
I'm just going to stop you for
yeah,
another
yeah,
second,
please,
and I'll
yeah,
say
of course.
the other thing, and I'm thinking that we're leading to the breastfeeding conversation of like how
Oh,
long do you
sure.
breastfeed, and what's the balance of I want to be able to give breast milk to my child, but I also desperately need these meds for myself and to keep my disease at bay. Like the other thing that we always say as pediatricians is we always say, fed is best.
Right.
Period.
Period. So
Period.
my that's certainly Courtney's mantra. Um, Breastfeeding with our son was again not a positive experience for her. I think he didn't they had a hard time latching right away, and then even just like the daily feedings were always kind of difficult for her. Like they never really got comfortable with it. She really didn't like it. It was very draining for her. Like it was, I know it sucks a lot of energy. I feel like she, especially with him, felt like it was really sucking her energy dry. And so she didn't do it for very long. She did, and we also started formula for all our kids immediately on day one mixed in. And so I'm pretty sure it was like 6 weeks for my son, maybe a little longer. I could be wrong. I know for my daughter, the second daughter, it was like 6 weeks. She was
Yeah.
basically at that point, even though she actually liked it. My daughter latched immediately, was like much gentler and a better experience, but it was the medicine thing. And it was like, I actually like doing this time. It's too bad, but I got to get back on my medicine. So
Yeah.
she got through the colostrum and like a little extra and was like, okay, great, good enough. You're going to be healthy. And fed is best. And, mommy's got to be in good shape to help keep you in good shape.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm curious just about like your, your emotions, what they were during this time. I mean, it sounds like everything, obviously it would have been better, right? If you had gotten pregnant and didn't have to use IVF, but the fact that things went so smoothly, thankfully, and that, able to get the right number of eggs and get an amazing number of embryos and things went like pretty much according to clockwork, so to speak, even with
Yeah.
all of the difficulties. I, I I'm guessing that it felt like it wasn't difficult for you, or maybe I'm putting words in your mouth.
No, I mean, look, for me, everything's easy because I'm the dad. But the difficult part for all of it was always just like whatever the physical toll was on Courtney and having to
Yeah.
support that and support her in that and sort of see her go through that. As I know, I don't need to tell you and your listeners, the preparation for the IVF and the retrieval and all that stuff. Highly uncomfortable for her, not a process physically that she enjoyed at all, injections and retrievals and, she looked crazy. I think, 40 eggs, like it was wild.
Yeah.
So like none of that was fun. But as you also said, thank God it went like so well, and so perfectly and like clockwork. It did go, even if it was physically uncomfortable and kind of a bitch to get through. The like if you asked her, she would be like, IVF is amazing. The way that we were able to do it and have it work and have it be controlled and have it produce our amazing daughters. Just 10 out of 10 from us for sure.
Hi, everyone. It's Aimee. I just wanted to take a quick moment to say that if talking away the taboo means something to you, if you've listened to an episode and felt less alone, more seen, or more understood, please support us so we can continue doing this important work. Everything we offer, this podcast, our support groups, our resources, all of them are completely free. And that's intentional, actually, because we never want someone to have to choose between getting help and affording it. But truthfully, we can't do this without your help. So if you're in a position to give even just a little, it really helps keep us going. It helps someone else find the support that they need too. So please donate at iwassuppose2haveababy.org/donate. It's really easy and it really makes a difference. And from the bottom of my heart, thank you for being part of this community.
Yeah. Look, I want to also just go back to the idea that you mentioned before about, like, you never necessarily really spoke about this process before because the two of you didn't have classic infertility. You were
Right.
turning to this because of Courtney's medical condition. And look, in the fertility world, we call that circumstantial infertility, and that, like, the
Mhm.
egg and the sperm are fine, or they meet fine. There are no issues, but there are circumstances beyond kind of like that Petri situation, let's call it, that
Right.
are preventing people from having the number of kids that they want, or in the order that they want them, or how many years apart that they want them, whatever it is. And there's so much that kind of is in that bucket. It's
Yeah.
medical conditions, mental health conditions. Sometimes people don't have the finances. Sometimes people are living in two different states. I mean, marriages are falling apart and they can't have kids. Like, there are a million reasons that kind of fall into that circumstantial infertility bucket.
Mm.
And I always think it's important to highlight, because people just make the assumption that it's only the people who are struggling to build their family, they only turn to IVF because there's actually something medically wrong. And that's not medically wrong with the egg or the sperm,
Right.
or
Right.
let's call it.
Yeah.
And that's not always correct.
Yeah. So yeah, that's us.
Yeah.
And so just to sort of close the loop on my kiddos, um, after, immediately after having our second, Courtney was very clear. She was like, I cannot do this again,
Yeah.
physically. Like, I just can't once she got back on her meds, she's like, I just feel too good being on them. I can't come off again. Being pregnant is awful. It totally wrecks my body. Um, and so we knew right away, like, for our third, we're gonna get a surrogate, which was good to have that clarity early on. So we were able to sort of really calendar it out. It was sort of like, okay, cool. We don't have to think about it for a year.
Yeah.
I She was like, okay, I owe you kids 2.5 years apart this time, so we're gonna time it to try to get them 2.5 years apart. She was like, I'm not carrying it. It's like, great, we can do that. And she'd already done the retrieval. Like, we had the embryos on ice. And so we waited like till we were like 18 months out from when we would have wanted to have a baby, and like started the process. And again, thank God it went really smoothly. We were able to find an incredible surrogate relatively quickly. And somebody who was within a 2 hours drive away from where we live,
Wow.
which was really, our number one thing, is I really wanted to make sure we were there for when the kid was born. Um, and, Courtney had the most unbelievable experience this time, because she got to be herself, like, mentally and physically through the whole thing. And when my daughter was born, as I mentioned, both of the first two had been C-sections. So the moment they were born, my wife was doped out on epidural and on all the things. And I forget if it was on both children or one, but she puked all over the nurse on one
Oh,
of them.
God.
She was like totally
Yeah.
out of it for like a day. And this time was like she got to watch our daughter be born and was completely lucid and present and holding her within 30 seconds, and got to just like snuggle and be with her all night without feeling like crap. And then got to go home the next day and not feel like crap for a week, and not have to, was just like feeling amazing the whole time. So it was just such a positive experience. Um, we again just feel like super lucky how it worked out so well, and that it was what we had hoped it would be, which was something that would, really allow Courtney to be herself as a mom, and with a newborn, and not be playing catch up for
Yeah.
months and feeling terrible. It was the opposite, and of course now we also had, two older kids who also still needed their parents, so it wasn't even, she was even more in demand, and more ready physically and mentally to be able to face that demand this time in a whole new way.
Yeah, I mean, it's such a gift. It's such a gift for people who can't carry for whatever reason. I mean, and to have the process go smoothly, which I've interviewed lots of people whose processes have not gone smoothly or as
I'm sure.
smoothly as they hoped. And so it's such a gift. It's such a gift. Um,
I'll give a little tip. I
yeah.
don't know if this will help anybody else, but when we were looking at possible surrogates, looking at the profiles, we had a couple, we wanted somebody who was a second time surrogate. We wanted somebody who was close by. And
Tell me why a second time surrogate?
we just wanted somebody who they'd been there, done that for them. Like we liked the idea of somebody who had been through the process physically, had been through the process emotionally and psychologically, and just like you could count on that person because they'd been there and they'd done that. They're a
Yeah.
vet as opposed to a rookie.
Yep.
So like those are really our only two major criteria. Was like you got to be within 2 hours, and we want you to have done it before, just so there's no surprises. And then as we were selecting, the one we ended up selecting, like her dossier was a picture of her with her kids, and the kids were all wearing matching outfits. And my wife was like, "This woman's got her shit together. Like, I like this mom." So that's
That's
how I ended up
awesome.
picking her, and she was amazing. She like I couldn't believe how chill and easy and awesome she was.
And do any of you or let me say that differently. Do you still have a relationship with her?
We don't. We haven't spoken to her since the minute she left the hospital, really.
Yeah.
Which was sort of how we kind of wanted it. And I mean, that was part of what we wanted. We wanted a surrogate who was like, I'm down for whatever you guys are down for. Throughout the process, she and my wife would text a little bit here and there and check in on each other. And it was lovely being in the hospital with her and her husband, who was so supportive and so nice. Um, but they were like, it was like almost laughably casual for her. She gave birth in like 90 seconds. It was the craziest thing I've ever seen.
Oh my
Um, it
goodness.
was
Oh my
I didn't know it was humanly possible. Like I'd never seen a live birth before because I'd been
yeah.
C-section. Um, on my phone you have a picture of me taking, or I took a picture of Courtney like with an excited face, which is at like 11:56 of like, oh my God, it's time to start pushing. And then the next picture is at like 11:59 and I'm cutting the umbilical cord. I mean, it's crazy.
Oh my
Yeah.
goodness.
It was
Oh
just like,
my
whoop.
goodness.
Yeah. And she like didn't make a sound, came right out. Uh, and then, we're with the baby next door. They had like another room for us. And it's like the next morning and she's dressed up. She pops into our room and be like, all right, we're taking off. Like, really great to meet you guys. See ya. And like, that was it.
It's so casual for this
It was
person who
so
played
casual. Yeah.
such an important piece of your life.
Yeah. It's wild. It's I don't know how else to describe it. It's
Yeah.
I mean, for her, like, God bless her. Like, she has her own kids and family she wanted to get back to. She wanted extra income and like likes being somebody who gives a gift to other people and like derives meaning and pleasure from that, and that's it for her. And her job was done and she's like, cool, I'm gonna go home to my kids now.
It's unbelievable. Look,
Yeah.
for some people, being pregnant is not that big of a deal. Like
Right.
they're
For her,
just
it just seemed super physically easy. Giving birth was clearly like super easy and not taxing on
right,
her.
right.
And they were amazing. It was really wild.
I'm in awe. My pregnancies are
Yeah.
so totally not like that, so I'm just in awe of
Yeah.
anybody.
She's a special woman.
Unbelievable, unbelievable. I'm wondering, like, in any part of this process, like the way you're describing it is that it's, I mean, thankfully you have three beautiful children. There were definitely bumps in the road of things didn't 100% go as planned. But in general, thank God things turned out beautifully and you have 3 healthy children. I wonder, like, who knew in your families or in your friend groups that you were going through this? Were there other people also that you got support from? Like I always, or even maybe like insensitive comments that just didn't understand why this was necessary, or why couldn't Courtney just like suck it up for a little longer? Like I
Mm.
always hear it when I have these conversations that there are always the people who are super supportive. And then there are those like people that come out of the woodwork that you never would expect, who kind of end up like saying something that kind of just lands the wrong way. I'm wondering if any of that happened to you.
As I mentioned earlier on this conversation, I can't remember what happened to me last Tuesday. So I'm trying to remember if anything like this happened. What I can say is clearly nothing like serious enough happened that it like stuck with me as an emotional scar or something. Um, Generally, Courtney and I are very open people. Like we're not, and like there's no shade on anybody else, but like we're not precious about these sort of personal journeys that we go on. Courtney, throughout her MS experience, has been very public about it, and been somewhat of a spokeswoman for it. So we're the same way with this. Like there was nobody in our life that we were sort of embarrassed to tell about what was going on or that we hid it from. And like we will, in fact, Courtney will tell like anybody and everybody. She doesn't care. So I think people are, both disarmed and impressed by that level of openness.
Yeah.
And also, MS is this thing that people don't really understand. So there's a general, like respect there of, I don't even really know what that means and what you're dealing with. So like, I'm going to definitely take my cues about this from you, because I have no frame of reference. Like you're the only person in my life I know who has this, or, you
Yeah.
know, so generally when it's, when we explain what it's all about, people took us at our word for it, for sure. Especially also because of the person Courtney is. Like she's so badass and like is a dancer by trade, right? So
Yeah.
very an athlete, so very demanding on her body, and like goes 110% and is very intense about how she does stuff. So if Courtney says, I had to opt out of something physical, you're like, there definitely was a good reason for that.
Look, I mean, that's MS. That's MS. I mean, it can knock the person, even the strongest person physically, emotionally, it can knock them down. I have a very close family friend who I've seen deteriorate in a dramatic way over the years. But it's can be debilitating if you're not taking care of yourself. And so
Yeah.
I deeply appreciate that. I'm also curious about your kids and like what they know about their stories, and how you share it with them, when you share it with them, like how old they are or will be when you share a little more of these pieces with them.
Yeah, I mean, we look, we had to explain. They're young at the time. I mean, Joey was 5 or 6, and my daughter Raquel would have been like 2 when our youngest Gianna was born. But we had to explain to them why mommy's not pregnant. There's not a baby in her belly right now. The way they know, they both were babies in mommy's belly, but that Gianna was being, grown in someone else's belly, and that like, when we had to go down to San Diego to pick her up. So we explained it
You
to them.
you all went? You all went, or
No,
just the 2 of
not the
you?
littles. Just but they're
Okay.
like, "Mommy and Daddy, we gotta go get your sister. We'll be back in like 2 days. We'll have a sister with us."
Must
Um,
be such an unbelievable conversation.
yeah, I know, it's cool. And like, when kids are that age, they don't, they take you at your word. They're like, "Okay, cool. So she's getting grown in somebody else's belly, and you're gonna go pick her up, and then we're gonna have a baby sister. Awesome. Great."
Okay, sure. Thanks. Thanks so
Yeah.
much, Dad. Appreciate
Yes,
that.
but like totally, honest with them about it. And,
Yeah.
she's comes from mommy and daddy, but she's just, like growing up in a different environment, because mommy couldn't carry her. That's it. And it's sort of, sort of the beautiful thing about all of this is like the second they're in the world, none of the backstory matters. And now they're just here. And it
Right.
doesn't matter at all how they got here.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
Right. Look, that is exactly that. I mean, regardless, I even have people share with me stories about how they use donor eggs or donor sperm or donor embryos, and people often like there's so much anticipatory kind of anxiety about it. Like,
Sure.
I don't know the way it's going to be, and am I going to really bond in the same way because these children don't have my genetics, or sometimes even with children who are carried by surrogates, right? That I don't know if it's going to be like I don't have the person in my body. Maybe I'm going to have trouble bonding, and like every person I talk to says all of that anxiety kind of went away when the baby was put in my arms.
Yeah, the very second. And I will say we're fortunate. I know Courtney feels blessed and grateful that she was able to be pregnant before having to do surrogacy so that she didn't feel like she was missing some experience. The one thing that she missed that she didn't get to do is deliver vaginally, which she had sort of just wanted to have that moment and experience that. She didn't get to. Oh well, what can you do about it?
Right.
But thank God she had gotten to feel that sort of baby body connection and knows what it's like to grow the bed and felt that. And so that when the third one came around, it allowed her to even more easily let go and say somebody else can do it.
I it's just such a powerful way to think about it, right? At the end of the day, like we have options now. We're in a time and place in history
It's
where
amazing.
so many of these options exist that didn't ever before. And so people, yes, obviously resources are necessary, and
Hmm. Hmm.
doctors and, finding the right match and all those pieces are important. And like this couldn't have happened 50 years ago, 100 years ago. It
Yeah,
just
50 years
right,
ago, she would have just had to gut it out and feel terrible for a year if
right,
we wanted to have a
right,
third kid. And now,
right,
thank God we got the same outcome without having to put her through hell to get there.
right. I'm curious about one last piece, kind of as we're winding down here.
Yeah.
I, you have this very public personality as a person who runs this incredible podcast, and
Thank you.
you've done an incredible amount of advocacy. It'd be nice if I could actually speak advocacy work for just the Jewish people at large, anti-Semitism, etc. And I wonder just about like, a lot of what many of us talk about in the Jewish community is continuity, and the fact that people are coming at us from all sides, and that there is this deep need to want to have children, especially and also for people to reconnect, especially after October 7th. I I just wonder, I know you said that you're not a planner and you don't think about things, but in your head it was kind of, I'd like to have at least three. I wonder what it would have been like if things hadn't gone as smoothly.
You know, all I can say is I know that for myself and as for the rest of us as well, like we can do hard things and we can handle challenges and you life is what it is, right? So if it hadn't worked out the way, thank God it did. And if it hadn't, I would have dealt with whatever it was. And if we'd had less than three, I would have dealt with it in that moment. And if it meant considering adoption or being just happy with however many we ended up with, like whatever it is, you have no choice, right? I mean, it's just sort of life is what it is, and we are capable of meeting whatever moments come our way. I think that's sort of my philosophy and why I don't worry so much about the future is because I'm confident that whatever comes, once it's actually in my present, I'll deal with it. And if I need to be concerned as it's happening, then I'll get concerned. But I'm not going to be concerned now before it's even here. And so I feel that way, with any challenge in life. I know I can get through it. I know that Courtney and I can get through things together and tackle whatever we need to tackle. And just thank God with these particular challenges, they worked out as, you know, as well as we could have dreamed, and we met them the way that they needed to be met. And if we come across any more, as I'm sure we will at some point in the future, we'll tackle those too.
Yeah. Yeah. And for the people out there who are embarking on whatever they're embarking on in terms of a fertility journey, trying to build their family. I mean, look, I can imagine, although we haven't talked about it so much, like, yes, things went easily as they could have, but I am certain that there were many moments that did not go exactly as planned. And like, even the shots are annoying and the early morning appointments are annoying and the like having to get up and Courtney not being on her meds and how like difficult and hard it was on her body. And then like, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but I think, as you said, that there are a lot of things that we can go through as people. And I think as Jewish people, we know we can do hard things because we sort of have this end in mind. I wonder about your advice and your thoughts for other people who are in the thick of it now and how they might be able to either see the other side of it or even just get through the difficult, the hard now.
Yeah, I mean, I have this tattoo here. It says Gamze Yavor in Hebrew, which means this too shall pass. That is something I hold dear to in life, for the good and the bad. But no matter how bad something is, it eventually is going to change. That's the one thing you can count on, is every situation changes. What goes up will come down. What goes down will go up. That is a truth that I set my watch to. And so again, like, we can withstand hard, terrible, awful things. And it's just about reminding yourself, like, there is an other side to everything. There's a light at the end of every single tunnel. You just have to keep going through it. And that can be awful, but there will come an end. The one guarantee you have is it will change somewhere at some point in another way. And you will feel happy again. You will find relief again. You will find encouragement again. Like, it's there. You just sometimes, you know, have to push through a lot of muck to get there, but it's coming.
I appreciate that. And I know lots of people will appreciate that too. The only thing that's constant is change, right?
That's
The
it.
only thing. Right.
Yep.
Gamze Yavor. Jonah, thank you so much for sharing. I know you felt like, you know, I don't have a classic fertility story. This is not exactly, and yet I deeply believe that it's important for people to hear all kinds of stories because we all don't go through one thing, right?
Yeah.
And we need role models of people who have done it before so we can say, oh yeah, if they did it, I can do this too. So thank you for sharing your piece and for sharing Courtney's experience also so much.
It's my pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much for listening. If you have any comments about this episode or would like to suggest a future episode, please reach out at 917-382-0422 or send us an email at info@IWSTHAB.org or info@IWSTHAB.org. And please don't forget to like, rate, and review so we can continue spreading the support to the wider Jewish community.